So we're gathered here today to do a salute to St. Patrick. No, but to talk about our fiscal year 16-17 budget, draft budget. So today we'll go over the accomplishments over the past year and goals and objectives for the next fiscal year 16-17. And then we'll go over a summary of the next fiscal year's budget, and that's the draft booklet that is all in front of you there on your seats.
Now, is that the same one that was on that was down?
Yes.
there?
Yes. So overview a little bit. We'll go over program management, land acquisition, management and monitoring, restoration, the burrowing owl strategy, and the regional general permit. So those are some of the highlight program areas that we'll talk about today. So in the past fiscal year, there was a governing and stakeholder meeting coordination, which is an ongoing activity task of the agency. Conditions implementation guide for covered activities was completed, and that's to help the planners and the public works engineers and the consultants that are processing the applications for coverage under the plan. So all the conditions of the permit that are applied in the development review process or are part of a bridge project, we completed a conditions guide to sort of help them through that process. Interpretation and clarification memos, those are just minor edits to the plan to sort of, well, we got this 2,000-page document, it's clunky in spots, and that's just stuff that we do internally in conjunction with the wildlife agencies. Plan modification approvals, 2 of those will be heard by the implementation or the governing board today. 5 co-permitting and consultant staff trainings will occur in this fiscal year. Section 7 memo template completed. So with projects that still are impacting fish like steelhead, or before the RGP was integrated with our permit, if they had impacts to waters that required a Section 7 consultation from the Corps, we now have a process where those 2 Section 10 and Section 7 processes of the Endangered Species Act are now talking to each other. And hopefully that'll help projects move forward more seamlessly. We've constantly revising the application and the reporting forms, and we've done refinements to our GIS database and the geo browser. I won't read all this, but this kind of gives you an idea of sort of the program outreach we've done. Just to follow up on last budget workshop, we did add a Facebook and a Twitter link to our webpage. And stakeholder outreach, presentations, letters to non-participating cities, continuing to coordinate with the Lucky Day Mitigation Bank, the lobbying trips to Washington and Sacramento, the letters to the state and the feds to encourage them to continue funding NCCPs and HCP program and land acquisition programs. There was the AEP award in 2015 for outstanding environmental resource document that was for the plan. It was submitted by Rob Eastwood of County Planning, and we were fortunate enough to get the award. And we've attended a lot of watershed protection workshops. And I think that's sort of highlighted. Also, I was involved in helping create the first HCP coalition meeting ever. So we've met our counterparts in Texas and Florida and West Virginia, both private and public sector implementers of these HCPs. And we're trying to create a national coalition to lobby Congress. So when I go to Washington next week to meet with our congressional delegation and agency heads. There will also be a county commissioner from Texas joining us, as well as a representative of one of the plans from Florida, and a gentleman by the name of Steve Qualls is representing several of the air or wind turbine energy HCPs. So we're trying to create a coalition to work both with the Republican and Democrats representatives in Congress to kind of get HCPs better funded.
I think Rubio has some extra time available.
Yeah, especially if he doesn't, if he gives up his Senate seat.
He has no choice. He's done.
Oh.
Under Twitter, is it Senator Clara Valley have that agency for Twitter?
It should be. I know the link is on our webpage. I've only clicked on it a couple times. Yeah.
I do, sir.
Yeah. Tara, do you know how it's? She's checking it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of cute, though, that a Habitat's tweeting.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Good one. Lee spells Vireo, you think?
Okay.
Developed the Habitat, from a program management finance side, we developed the Habitat Agency's financial accounting and tracking system. We developed financial policies for the agency. Some will be heard before the governing board today. Others were just adopted internally by me, the executive officer. We've done our second audit, which the governing board will hear today, our second AB 1600 report. We did get 3 California Department of Fish and Wildlife local assistant grants totaling nearly $300,000. Now, we projected that we would get grant revenues of 3.1 this year, and part of the reason why that projection is so off is the timing of the submittal for the Section 6 grant changed from October to March of this year. So we were going under the assumption that we would submit in October and likely get awarded the grant in June or July, but that won't be the case. Hopefully we'll get awarded the grant, and that it'll be probably sometime late fall, early winter of this year. And we did apply for a Prop 1 grant for an acquisition, and the state decided not to fund any land acquisition grants through the Prop 1 program, so it was a waste of our time, unfortunately. So we had 3.1 in revenues from covered projects. We had projected 12, and you're probably saying, what the heck is going on here? And it's a good question. A lot of this has to do with timing, and I'll get in, Jill and I will get into it more during the mid-year budget review. But essentially, when we met with the co-permittees last year around this time, they made a best guess prediction on when they thought these development projects would be coming in, when these bridge projects would be coming in, and in the case of the water district, when they thought their improvement projects would be coming in. And with the development projects, a lot of it is based on, as you all know, being involved with city and county governments. A lot has to do with when that project finishes all its permitting and goes through the city or county development review process. It has to do with what kind of financing that they're anticipating to kickstart the project, and market factors. So there were 2 large projects in the city of San Jose that we thought the revenues would be coming in by now, and we have found out that is incorrect. Those are $6.4 million. It's the Communication Hill Phase 2 project and the Metafair Arcadia Evergreen, it goes by various names, project in East San Jose. From what I've been told, both those projects will pull their grading permits this summer, so we will get the fees from those projects in probably October. And there were several Morgan Hill projects that city planning thought would come in this year, they think they'll be coming in next year. So it's as much a timing issue as anything. With a couple of the county bridge projects, we thought they would be coming in now. They're being, we're expecting them to come in now in fiscal year 17 and fiscal year 18, according to what Roads and Airports has told us.
And Edmund, if I may interrupt, so
Yes.
the miss in revenues, if you want to put it that way, is really deferred, delayed. There isn't really anything gone.
No, nothing. As far as from what has been communicated to us, it's just a timing issue. Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, okay, thank you.
We negotiated 3 mitigation-only agreements for Caltrans, Hecker Pass, and Highway 152 truck climbing lane, and PG&E Moss Landing Metcalf Road projects. So essentially, these are projects that, in some cases, were already constructed or in the process of being constructed when our permit was issued to us to create this agency. But they never, so they had existing biological opinions from the federal government, they had existing CEQA and NEPA clearance, but they never were able to implement their CEQA permit mitigation requirements. So these were all projects within the plan area, so they come to us and say, can we mitigate through the plan? And we say yes, and these are set up in such a way that we either acquire land for them that'll be earmarked for these projects, or they give us money to help manage the reserve system. In each of the 3 contracts is worded slightly differently. For the Moss Landing Metcalf Road project, it was temporary impacts, so that would be for land management activities. Heckard Pass will be to acquire land. So if we acquire a 1,000-acre parcel, 33 acres of this parcel will be set aside for the Hecker Pass project. It won't count towards our reserve system, but they will pay endowments, and the land will be managed in perpetuity through our land management activities. But it helps these projects meet their requirements. It helps us collect more revenues that can go towards land acquisitions, because typically someone selling you property isn't going to just sell you 33 acres. Usually you need to buy what they're selling, 1,000 acres or whatever, and this helps us with completing those projects. And it's good for these project proponents that had, in the case of PG&E, their project happened 9 years ago, and they could not find a way to mitigate it and the federal government was putting pressure on them. You need to do something, and we were able to give them an avenue out. So from a policies and procedures standpoint, we developed personnel policies for the agency. Now that we have 3 employees, I felt we needed to do an employee handbook and all that stuff. 2 position descriptions, one for management analyst and one for the principal program manager. Created 3 on-call consultant lists for restoration design, species monitoring and surveys, and property appraisals. Released an RFP for professional services. In the past, those services have been performed by ICF primarily. Streamlined the PSC approval process. That was through delegating some of the approval of PSCs to the executive officer. Streamlined land transaction process. We're taking that to the governing board today. And developed a public land in lieu of fees policy, where a public entity can offer up land in lieu of paying the fees.
PSC is public service?
Oh, sorry, participating special entity. So that's, so those are, yeah, so those are like organizations like school districts, PG&E, Caltrans, that aren't covered by, they didn't sign on to the permit. Okay, yeah. We also have accounting, financial, and legal services contracts to help out with those various areas with the county, with a private law firm, and we have some in-house people that help out too, in small consultant firms. So as I noted, ICF has been doing the implementation services. DUDEC has helped out with water permitting, contract with county parks for grant services, contract with county planning for GIS support services, and contract with consultants to assist with land transactions. We have a realtor helping us out on the Richmond Ranch, permit compliance, and agency administrative operations. So from a land acquisition standpoint, the first property enrolled in the reserve system was the 1,802-acre Coyote Ridge site, successfully enrolled in the reserve system in October. The enrollment target for fiscal year 15 was over 5,200 acres. We had thought that the Calero Park enrollment would have happened sooner, but we do have a draft conservation easement prepared, and we're going through the second administrative draft with county parks, and we hope to get that enrolled in the reserve system later this year. We had also hoped to acquire a property, and in closed session I will update the implementation board on negotiations with the first three. The fourth one is just preliminary talks. The Sargent Ranch people are talking about mitigation banks, quarries, and they're in discussions with Post and the Nature Conservancy. So there's a lot going on there, but we've talked to them also. And the Caltrans is going to donate a 55-acre parcel along Pacheco Creek off of 152. They're going to take it to the California Transportation Commission in May to seek their approval, so we hope to have that enrolled in the reserve system early next fiscal year. We did submit a Section 6 grant in March, and we have initiated discussions with Wildlife Conservation Board, the Water District, and others, including foundations, concerning the grant programs of those organizations for land acquisition and restoration. So management and monitoring. So we've prepared a draft management monitoring plan for the Coyote Ridge Open Space Preserve. So now that we're in partnership with OSA in managing that property, one of the things both OSA and the agency need is sort of a guidebook on how to manage it, and a draft plan is being prepared, and hopefully it'll be completed by the end of next fiscal year, if not sooner. We're doing bay checker spot surveys and floristic assessments at Coyote Ridge Open Space Preserve. We're also trying to figure out how many occurrences of the rare plants we have out there, because the way the plan is set up, before you can take an occurrence of a plant, so if a project's going to impact an occurrence, we have to have the right number of occurrences already protected. So getting this property enrolled and Calero enrolled is very important for the stay-ahead provisions associated with all the rare plants. Amphibian surveys have been done at Sierra Vista and Coyote Open Space Preserve. The ones at Coyote Ridge are being done at this moment. And the Water District and their Coyote Ceanothus plant population creation project is, we're very interested in that and very hopeful it'll succeed. It'll help with our conservation objectives of creating occurrences and protecting occurrences of that plant. So burrowing owls, so we do the surveys and we have the resource group which meets quarterly. We updated the fee zone map, the agreement with Don Edwards, which resulted in 719 acres of burrowing owl breeding habitat under Habitat Agency management. So what they're doing out there is enhancing, restoring, and managing the property for burrowing owls. And it's part of that expanded burrowing owl strategy. We've also met with a private entity called Steel Wave. They're Development Consortium, and they own a lot of properties in the El Viso area, and we're working with them to improve some of the lands that are, I guess you'd call them landfill lands associated with their project, trying to enhance them for borrowing else. And we're talking to other entities about doing management agreements. So we're also in the process of designing our first pond and wetland restoration projects at Clara. The blue polygon is the pond and the green is the wetland. Those are the pictures, the wetland on the top, the pond on the bottom. So it's important to do wetland and stream restoration and pond creation as the jump start provisions of our plan. We've already been impacting stream systems and wetlands through development activities. So we have to restore and create so much habitat per year, I think up until year 40 of the plan. And it's also important for the RGP. One of the conditions is the RGP is that we have sites that are pre-mitigation, so you already have things lined up before you can really fully use the regional general permit. So it's important to get these constructed this fall to help us out with the stay ahead through the provisions of the habitat plan, as well as to fully utilize, allow applicants to fully utilize the benefits of the regional general permit. We're collaborating with the San Jose Water Company on this. They ran into kind of a cul-de-sac with the regional board on this, and the regional board was stopping their water tank project from moving forward because they weren't satisfied with the mitigation that the San Jose Water Company was proposing for the project. We've offered up this site, so this site will be a little bit bigger now than we originally anticipated. And they will, so we're offering them a way out of their conundrum with the 401 permitting process. So they will help pay for the restoration of those sites. But they're glad to do it because then they can move forward with their project. So one of the biggest accomplishments for us this year was getting the regional general permit. It was issued on January 15th. The first 4 bullets just kind of highlight some of the stuff we went through in the summer and fall of last year to get to a point where the January 15th permit was issued. And it was quite an uphill battle, and I don't use that word lightly, but we did get it. And thankfully, we had people within the Corps itself who understood the problem and rectified it and worked with us to help us get this permit.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I know what a Herculean task that has been.
Thank you.
And an endeavor over the last several years, and I can't believe it actually happened.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing an RGP co-permittee training on April 5th to let the co-permittees on, your staff who's implementing the plan understand how it works. We have a draft application form and we're working on submittal protocol. There's going to be an application fee associated with this because we are the ones sort of reviewing the applications and then submitting them to the Corps for approval. So we're working on what that should be. Calero Park and a Guadalupe River restoration sites proposed as pre-mitigation for the regional general permit. The city of San Jose outfall structures will be the first, there's 8 of them, they'll be the first projects to utilize the RGP. And that's where the Guadalupe River restoration site comes in as pre-mitigation for both their 404 and 401 impacts. Our next Herculean task is to get the regional and state water quality boards to give us a 401 certification for our RGP. We've had 2 discussions with them. They have made some concessions, but there's still a long ways to go on this. So,
Ed,
yes,
before you move into
Yes.
next year, can I just ask
yes.
the sort of stay-ahead provisions, right? It seemed like our enrollments were slower, the development projects were slower. We've got the stay-ahead provisions, which we have a little bit of time around, but
Yeah.
how would you characterize the balance related to those things?
I'd say we're pretty good in terms of the number of acres we enrolled because of Coyote Ridge. And it does have critical habitat and modeled habitat for a lot of the species. We're going to be enrolling some City of San Jose land for the burrowing owls next year, along with Calero. So I feel like we're good in those areas. The one area I'm most concerned about is acquiring an occurrence of the Coyote Theanothus, which is important for the Water District and the Anderson Dam projects. But I do believe once Calero's enrolled and we get one of these private sites, we'll be way ahead on the jump start. Right now we're ahead, and like you said, we're in our grace period right now, where they allow us some sort of nuance, flexibility to work with us on it. But I will say if we don't get some of these other properties enrolled, then I'm going to start worrying more. But Coyote Ridge has a lot of the plant occurrences, so that's good. But we need to, at some point in time, acquire within the next 4 years, we need to acquire a Coyote Theanothus occurrence. And we do need to get some more sites that have stream systems and wet features on them.
Thanks.
And it was a good question. It leads into the first bullet for next year. So for 16-17, these are the sites that we hope will be enrolled in the reserve system, or acquired or enrolled. The enrollment process takes a little bit longer than just acquiring a site. We're hoping Calero's enrolled and the Pacheco Creek site will be. And then we're hoping to do a deal with the Richmond Ranch folks. I've had preliminary discussions with them. We'll be talking more about it in closed session. The City of San Jose, it's the regional wastewater facility, has some projects that are impacting burrowing owl land, and they're going to be enrolling some land that has burrowing owls breeding on it into the reserve system. We're also going to be doing a management plan with them for the balance of the property. And Creighton University Cherry Flat Reservoir property, we're hoping to complete a deal on that next fiscal year also. I mentioned the burrowing owl. I shouldn't say it's with the City of San Jose, it's with the regional wastewater facility. That's incorrect. Begin burrowing owl management agreement negotiations with NASA Moffett and Guadalupe Gardens, which would be the City of San Jose and the airport. And then complete the wetland and pond restoration construction out at Calero. Begin stream riparian wetland restoration design work on 2 other sites. Submit another Section 6 grant. We're working with PG&E as a funding partner on land acquisitions. They're doing a Bay Area HCP, and they would like to acquire some lands as pre-mitigation for that Bay Area HCP. So they're a potential partner both for the Lamont property, UTC, the rest of the UTC property, as well as Richmond Ranch. We're working with NGOs and foundations to get money, and I've been having some conversations with Resource Legacy Fund about providing us a loan to help with acquisitions, given that fees aren't coming in as quickly as we would like. And the money would be coming from the Packard and Moore foundations, and it would be sort of like gap financing and a revolving loan fund that we'd be able to access to help with land acquisitions, because there's a delay many times in when these revenues are coming in on these projects. And this is something we'll be talking with the board over the coming months to see your comfort level with doing something like that. We'll be submitting probably 2 to 3 instead of 1 to 2 lag grants. Secure the 401 certification for the habitat plan. Putting this as a goal for next fiscal year may be ambitious. Complete development of the RGP application process, begin regional general permit in lieu fee program approval process. So right now we have an interim regional general permit. They still need to approve a in lieu fee program that would be dovetail with the fees we currently collect on projects, or an umbrella mitigation bank. So the habitat plan reserve area would be an umbrella mitigation bank that could accept regional or 404 monies, and the 404 permit would then recognize that our reserve system is a mitigation bank. And that has to go through something called the Interagency Review Team, which is made up of the Corps, the Water Board, the wildlife agencies. And we think it's going to take 2 or 3 years. So we have an interim mitigation strategy now. Once we get through the IRT, we'll have a in perpetuity process established with the Corps to move forward in conjunction with our ESA permits. It just tires me out saying that.
I don't know if it's exactly related, but you'd mentioned earlier that, I forget whether it was California or U.S. Fish and Wildlife, we'd applied for some grants and they didn't provide any funding for acquisition. Was that a policy decision? Was it competitive? Was it reduced funding that they had available?
A policy decision. So it's that Prop 1 grant, which for water conservation and improving water supply and quality. And they said it was through the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and they came up with this policy the grant program initially said, if you can prove that you're enhancing or improving water supply or water quality, then through land acquisition, then please submit a proposal. So I'm not sure how many proposals were submitted statewide, but the only thing they funded was, and it was mainly with RCDs and NGOs, not government entities like ours, to do restoration projects, a lot to do with trout and salmon. And Commissioner Bonham used to be with California Trout, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But we thought the Lamont property was a good candidate for it because it's Upper Penitentiary Creek. It has some great groundwater assets. It's near a water district and county park and UC Berkeley property, so you start looking at protecting the headwaters of a watershed. So we thought it was a good candidate, but they chose not to fund any. And from what I heard from Dave Johnson, who works with us through the state, they were uncomfortable making a decision to sort of give money towards acquisitions when it might be difficult to sort of quantify how much we're enhancing water supply or improving water quality.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay. So we're working to develop an online interactive species monitoring database. So when you're in the field, instead of filling out forms, you'll have your tablet with you, your phone. You can do your monitoring for species and land management activities, and it'll go into a central database, and everything will be, and then it'll help with our report writing, and it'll create sort of a uniformed kind of monitoring protocol, and everybody will be using the same sort of platform in which to do the monitoring and land management activities. Just an efficiency and kind of a streamlining of that and making sure everybody's doing it the same way. Execute land management agreement with OSA for the Coyote Ridge property. Complete our surveys. Start developing a 5-year budget projection for revenues and expenses. After what we went through the last 2 years, we kind of want to get a handle of what's going on. We're going to be a lot more conservative with what revenues we think are coming in the future. And we also want to get a handle on what's happening on a longer time frame than just year to year. So we're going to start working on 5-year projections for our budget. Execute an agreement for endowment investment services and management. And we're going to come to the governing board. I think that's who we have to go to increase PSE application fees. So fiscal year 16-17 draft budget gives the Habitat Agency the financial resources necessary to accomplish the goals and objectives outlined above. So let me just... I'm going to go through this. Can you guys see that okay? Yep. So in the final budget that we submit to the governing board, we will have this table completed here. So the revenue sources come from fees and charges. And you have the land cover fees, which are the Zone A, B, and C. You have the nitrogen depth fee, which is on vehicle miles or vehicle trips. Then you have the serpentine fee, western burrowing owl fee, the wetland fees, and part of those fees go towards endowment, 10%, a little over 10%. And the planned prep reimbursement is to reimburse the co-permittees for their costs of putting the plan together. We will be issuing checks to the co-permittees this September, October timeframe, I should say fall. When we close our books in September, come to the governing board, we'll have a clear idea what revenues were, and we will be reimbursing the partners, beginning to reimburse them for the upfront costs they had in putting the plan together. We also collect special PSE, special participating special entity charges and administrative costs associated with that. And then, as I mentioned, the mitigation only. We're also actively pursuing grants. And now we come to talking about the budget.
And Edmund,
Yes.
if I may, there we go. On the grants,
Yes.
that's something that I would appreciate the board being kept up to date on.
Yes.
As far as your pursuit of them, which ones you are awarded, which ones you are not.
Yes.
In the original planning of this entire thing, there were skeptics about the fees covering the costs and all for acquisition and maintenance of the lands that are acquired and put into the plan. And the grants are a very important part of this whole program working. So if you can keep us up to date on that, I think that's a very significant source of funding.
Absolutely. And in the annual report presentation that Tara will be giving to you, she'll give you an outline of at least the grants for that help with achieving our goals and objectives for fiscal years 13, 14, 14, 15. But yeah, we will. I can make it part of the executive report.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the estimated budget for 15, 16 is the left column. And I've sort of talked already, but if there's anything, if any of you have questions on that, I'll be glad to try to answer them. The estimated actual is what it is. It's, as you can see, we're looking just under $4 million versus 15. So that's a big difference. And
Edmund, if I may, several people
Yeah.
arrived after you brought this up previously.
Yeah.
And the reason for the discrepancy, you're saying a lot of that is timing.
timing.
Were projects that you assumed would be farther along in the process and paying their fees in our fiscal year did not get to that point.
Correct.
But they are still in progress and assumed, those fees are still assumed to be coming forward just in the following year instead of this year.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Because otherwise it looks bad.
Oh, it would look really bad if
Thank you.
we're anticipating 7.9 million of rollover. There's a couple projects in the city of San Jose we haven't yet gotten the full feedback from them on the status of a couple of those projects, but we're anticipating 7.9 of what we thought would be collected in fiscal year 15-16 will be collected in 16-17. And then there's the one county bridge project will be in the following fiscal year. I think it's around 400,000. So the estimated 16-17 budget reflects that rollover. We're only anticipating, I mean, Jill can correct me on the exact number, but we're only anticipating, I think 3.7 million in new revenues, just to give you an idea. So most of this will be rollover. So there's not a lot of new stuff that we can, at least in our conversations. So the big year was this 15, 16, 16, 17 timing thing. But we do see revenues sort of plateauing out a little bit after this sort of pig through the snake that this sort of time frame represents. And you're seeing a big number from grants. That reflects the $2 million Section 6 grant. We have talked to Wildlife Conservation Board about helping to fund the Richmond Ranch acquisition or another property, and we're optimistic we can get $2 million from them. We've had preliminary discussions with the Federal Bureau of Reclamation and the Central Valley Project. They help fund Coyote Ridge. We're hoping we can get about $1 million from them. We've also had conversations with Water District staff through their Safe Clean Water program, and they have a grant program that they've set aside $8 million for land acquisitions, and we're hoping we can get about $3 million from that program. So that's where the 8 comes from.
I just wanted to make a comment, if I might, and that is that the estimated permit income and revenue is what many cities are seeing, that, you know, you certainly have a great big huge uptick because we had so little activity, and so that plateau is starting to not only show flat but starting to dip in terms of revenues. So we should make sure that we're not thinking that these get larger and larger as we go.
Exactly. No, we are not going to do that. No, because that's what we're hearing too. Now with us, things kind of go, in a couple years, there's going to be some big VTA projects coming up. There's a couple big water district ones. So we have that revenue stream that doesn't reflect some Caltrans projects. But we see revenues, this is sort of just me thinking about it. We'll have to really analyze it. Somewhere over the next 4 to 5 years being in the $3 to $5 million range. So this rollover aside, we see revenues being in the $3 to $5 million range over the next 4 to 5 years. That could be mistaken. Maybe there's some big project we don't know about's coming in, or something. There is that bond initiative. It's going to be on the ballot in November for transportation. That may lead to a lot more transportation projects coming, getting the funding they need to be built, and that may lead to some big revenues coming into the agency. But we're not factoring that in until we know what it'll look like.
Conversely, we have the state pulling back on all those because of gas taxes.
Right, you got
Right.
that too, yeah.
Right. Could I ask you where you think the big burrowing owl fee is coming from?
Yes,
Out of
that's,
curiosity?
most of it's from one San Jose project. I'd say 80–90% of it. It's that Evergreen project, yep. And then,
Yeah, I heard it's perfect.
so this is appropriations. And you can see the budgeted and actual for 15-16. So currently, we're a little under the budget request. That may change in the coming months, but right now, we're slightly less than what we requested.
That's fine.
So budget request A and budget request B are only different in terms of whether you here assembled today think we should, if it'd be okay to add a staff person or not. So budget A reflects not adding the staff person, and budget B reflects adding a staff person. And to the best of my estimate, adding a staff person would cost the agency about $9,000 more per year. And I can go into all those numbers in
I'm sorry, you said
90,000, right?
9,000, yeah,
A year?
9,000 a month?
a year for this year, because of offsetting. Because currently we have consultants doing a lot of our staff work.
You're saying it would cost 100,000, but we'd have 91,000 less in consulting.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I need some of those $9,000 staffers.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Ask for the same thing.
I didn't explain that well, thank you. So, and I'll get into these numbers as we go through the presentation, but part of the benefit of adding the staff person is we have things that are currently not being done. So those are opportunity costs. Those are some concerns that I have about permit implementation. There was a project that PG&E was doing over by Anderson Dam, and it was a PSE application that we processed. And the water district staff were out there a lot, and there was non-compliance of the project per water regulation permitting, which isn't us, and the conditions of the permit that we issued them to move forward as a PSE. Because we had the water district eyes and ears there, because it was right, they were on water, part of it was on water district property, they were able to flag what you all would call code violations. So with the PSE process right now, we don't have that enforcement function, that follow through, because we don't have the staff capacity to do it. ICF is doing the PSE process for us. So I was looking to hire more of a senior planner, principal planner level person that would sort of take over those responsibilities. ICF, up until us hiring Tara, helped me with running the meetings, because putting agendas together, scheduling the meetings, I just didn't have anybody to do it. So those are things that would now be done more in-house. So things that you would typically call in-house functions. We hired a consultant. She used to work for the city of Morgan Hill in the redevelopment department. She helped us with all those RFP, RFQ processes, because it was just too much for me to do EO work and run a bunch of RFQ, RFP process. We had to hire somebody to do that. And we couldn't ask ICF to do it because ICF was the one also bidding a lot of these proposals. So not having staff puts me in some difficult decisions on how we're going to manage different processes. Also, as I get involved in more things, there's more executive officer kind of engagement that I would like to do, and I can't. I have to not meet with certain groups or like foundations. I've made some phone calls and I've had a couple preliminary meetings, but it's harder to do sort of what I would consider executive type work when I'm in the trenches doing day-to-day stuff. So that's the opportunity cost kind of stuff, and how do we move the program forward? There's real costs associated with hiring, cost savings with hiring somebody, and this was my best estimate of tasks that consultants were doing for us. So that's why you see numbers in request B being for technical and permit support being 408, and in budget request B being 72,000 less than that. Those are, and I'll get into this as we go down.
Conceivably, the program thought about, and when we were forming the program, we thought about the kind of the buckets or the balance of where dollars were going to go, right?
Yes.
And so did we start to, did we think about what that relationship was going to be originally and what we think it's going to end up being now because of things like lost opportunity costs? And
no, I don't think there was ever that analysis. They definitely did how they thought the agency would grow over time. Within the first 5 years, they talked about 1 to 5 new staff people being added. In sort of generic terms, and in the finance plan, they do highlight some of that stuff in spreadsheets, but they never did at least I haven't seen in the written form the analysis that you're talking about of the cost of doing business and what can an organization do versus not do based on staffing levels, and what's appropriate for consultants versus not appropriate for consultants. And there's certain things like the Burrowing Owl program, running that's perfect for consultants, helping us get our 404, 401 permits. Those are appropriate for consultants. Developing a land management plan, at least
with one time.
Exactly. Yeah, but we have consultants, basically they're an extension of staff, and they're expensive. And we also have co-permittee staff helping us out on projects. And I'll just give you, we're going to have some of the water district biologists help us out on some projects, and their hourly wage is $180 an hour. So that's the overhead rate. And it's the same for county finance.
Because they charge you the fully burdened.
Right, yeah. It's from 111 to 244 for county finance. And for county planning, it's 129 for the GIS analyst. So we aren't getting some sort of cost savings doing work with the co-permittees. The quality of the work is outstanding from the co-permittees. And I'm not just saying that because you represent those groups. Working with Deborah and Don and Janelle from the Water District, all the county people we work with in parks, finance, and planning, they're all great. Jim Rowe and Steve Golden, who don't charge us anything to do stuff, they've been great. And the other problem is then now they're all busier too, so they're not as involved with the day-to-day stuff with the plan like they were when Ken was around. So I don't have that resource to tap. Pardon me?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they need to do stuff for their organizations. Some of them have been promoted, like Don Rocha and Rob Eastwood, so they're higher up in the food chain now. Others have retired. Plus, the planning staffs are dealing with all this permit influx, and sometimes with less people than they had in 2006. So,
I don't want to beat this topic
Yeah.
to death, but I also have some concerns about knowing that grants, if a large part of the income that we're anticipating is grant income or grant revenue, oftentimes that grant revenue is restricted to a specific project or has limitations on what you can charge in overhead and
yeah,
personnel and things like that. So
Right.
that's an interesting nuance here as part of the revenue stream.
exactly. So some grants, like a restoration grant, we could charge overhead to the grant for some of that stuff. But the land acquisitions, they might pay for an appraisal, or we could use an appraisal as a match. Yeah.
Edmund, the way I see it is after you've got your feet wet now, you've been here a couple of years,
Yeah.
you recognize what we can do in-house, what we should go out of house, and your recommendation coming to us is to hire another person so we can have in-house control, but also cost savings.
Both, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes. And this shows a stark contrast on Budget A and Budget B here, where in two categories, sort of the contract administrative services between independent consultants and ICF, run about $45,000 a year. And this person would take over all those responsibilities. Well, it may not be this person, but it might be Tara, me, and this person combined. And they would also do grant writing. So right now we have ICF doing a lot of the grant writing, and the county helping out with some of the. We haven't fully utilized the county guy yet. We need to do a better job of that. But the county helps out with sort of identifying grant programs and helping us with formatting and grant preparation. And these are sort of I don't know if these numbers, these are correct. So these are where we are with salaries right now. And the principal permit specialist, that's the new position. And that's what we would hire the person at. And you can see the benefits and then the total at the bottom for staffing. And these are some of the contracts we currently have. That will be carried over into fiscal year 16-17. And as stated, some of these numbers will decline if we add a staff person. The next category is technical and permitting support. So we have a jump in this category because of previously we had compliance tracking in administrative, cost center 1, and we've moved it to this category because it's more appropriate to be situated here. We also have the water permitting. That whole effort to go through the IRT process and to get the 401 permit certification, that represents the majority of this. And just going to have some notes here. So the difference between this budget and the one that we would, budget A and budget B in this category here would be with budget A, we're talking about $408,000. With budget B, it's $336,000. And the cost savings would come, that PSE line would be done completely in-house, so that 37 would go away. And another 35 would go away in the other categories by having an in-house staff person take over some of those responsibilities. A lot of the compliance tracking would be done in-house. By adding a staff person, a lot of the annual report preparation would be done in-house. Adding Tara has saved the agency, and I'll introduce Tara at the board meetings today, but Tara used to work for ICF, so the fact we were able to get her, it was like a bonus. And we got someone who knew the agency, knew the plan, has great work experience, and now she's doing stuff she used to do when she was with ICF. So with her, we hit a home run.
What would you say would be the total savings with the new person?
With the new person, it's more with the anticipated. It's more with that opportunity cost and anticipated cost of doing that in code enforcement. But I would say about $50,000 to $70,000 a year. The way I wrote it in here, I didn't throw in the anticipated costs. I just looked at the straight numbers. By adding a new staff person, it was going to cost about $9,000 more a year for the agency. And it's more of an offset. Okay, they'll do this, they'll do that. But if you're looking at additional responsibilities and additional things we'd have to take on in the future, $50,000 to $70,000 a year.
I'm going to use some terms, they might not be exactly right, but hopefully you'll get the idea. I sort of think about expenses being sort of fixed, like your staffing, right? The standard contracts we have for administrative support from the participating bodies that are, part of the agency. Variable, which is really related to kind of the permitting activity, that you're costing your expense flow based on the level of permits that are coming through, and then what I'm going to call discretionary, which is really not discretionary, as it's the work that we're committed to doing, but it really is dependent upon whether we have funds available to do it or not. And so I think my primary thing is just to make sure that our fixed and variable expenses seem like they're sustainable over the long term, given a range of expected kind of variable permit fees that come through, so that we don't wind up in a spot where if the permits go down low, all of a sudden, if we got $1.5 million that's kind of fixed and we only get $1 million a year, what do we do, right? If we think we're sort of pretty stable at $3 million a year of ongoing revenue, then $1.5 million isn't that big of a deal, and we can work on setting money aside for the more discretionary.
No, that's an excellent point. So at least in this category right here, so in category 1, so if we go back to page 12. Page 11. So the grant coordination and preparation, that's a variable cost depending on how much. So if we do it in-house, it's a 100% savings versus going out. But that's a variable cost. Contract administrative services, some of that's variable cost. So if you look at fixed, that's all the stuff, salaries and benefits, that's fixed. Legal services is fixed. Financial services could be cut a little bit. Clerk of the board is fixed. So you kind of get an idea. I would say of this category, probably $1 million, a little bit more than $1 million would be fixed. Then going to what's on the screen, the water's permitting, that's discretionary. It's something that all the co-permittees want. They want this permit integration, but worst case scenario, we could put that on hold if the floor fell out on the economy. Compliance tracking, some of that is fixed, some of it is variable. I'd have to get into it to a little more detail. And the technical assistance stuff, a lot of that could go away. That's stuff where we could just say, we just got to hunker down and not, or do more of it in-house. A lot of stuff in this category, the conservation strategy, these are things we could put on hold. Like the biggest one there, the wetlands restoration and creation. If the economy goes south, we won't have the money to do it. Land enrollment, we'll have no money to buy land, so that'll go away. Research, monitoring, adaptive management, a lot of that's going to stay. Not all of it. We could cut it back. Management planning, that could go away. Land management activities, we could do some, as you know, with parks, you know, there's some maintenance things you have to do. They're fixed, and some are discretionary. It would be the same for us. And the Western Burrowing Owls, we could cut back there. There's certain things we have to do, like the surveys and the management agreements we're currently have with Don Edwards and the one we'll have with the city. Those we would, and we don't want to lose the burrowing owl on our watch. So I would think most of that would be fixed. So there's a lot of new stuff in this budget area. We never had a land management activities budget line, and this is just kind of a guesstimate on my part. And we'll be doing a management agreement with OSA to help co-manage the Coyote Ridge property. If we acquire Richmond Ranch, we'll be doing management activities out there, and we'll be working with county parks in Clara and doing management activities out there. So that was it comes out to $275,000, and that's sort of the best guess of what we think. If all these things happen, Clara, Richmond, maybe another property, the Pacheco Creek property, we envision sort of $275,000 for next year to start doing fence repair, cattle infrastructure improvements, road repairs, kind of the stuff that Rob deals with all the time. And you also see that wetlands restoration and creation it's a big number. That's $300,000 for two design. So these things are expensive, and it's one thing that we're going to have to look into as the agency is the cost of restoration, and having some discussions with the wildlife agencies, and do we need to come up with different sources to fund restoration projects, because these things are expensive. I thought they were expensive in Placer County and Lake Tahoe in that area, but they're more it's just like housing around here. So so that anticipates $300,000 for design and $450,000 for construction of the restoration of those two projects at Calero, those two sites at Calero. The San Jose Water Company will be reimbursing us $50,000 to $60,000 for the restoration costs. That's not reflected in that number. It'd be reflected in revenues. So this is sort of the cost center and how it's broken down and who's doing the work. that little block is up there. I apologize for that. It just appeared, and I'm not sure why. I was hoping it was just on my screen.
Click on it, will it go away?
Yeah, I've tried. Yeah. I've tried to close it. No luck. And this is what we estimate would be for the endowment and the reimbursement to the co-permittees for plan prep. And that's, you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, but if we have a $600,000 reserve fund, but that'll only carry it for so far. But we can delay payments to the endowment if we have to also.
The reserve fund, is that sort of the unrestricted fund balance, or is it a separate budgeted fund?
It's like a rainy day fund, yeah. Yeah, so it's separate, yeah.
And do you know, the chart at the beginning was kind of blank in terms of what you think the unrestricted reserve or the unrestricted fund balance will look like at the end of the year?
Like the total? Yeah, probably, we have what, 7.5 million right now, Jill? And another, probably around 8.5 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Depends on the revenues coming in. So I should say somewhere between 7 and 9 million. Okay, thank you. Any questions? Additional questions?
Thank you. I think, Edmund, if you're wrapped up, I think even though it's not agendized, I think we'd all agree if there's anyone in the public that wishes to make a comment to come forward now. If that's all right with all the members, I assume.
The last page of the agenda says there will be comment allowed, so I was kind of hoping there would be.
Oh, I missed that. Thanks, Doug. Anyway, we're doing the right thing.
You are.
Thank you.
And that's what I really appreciate. So I'm going to have a little fun at the expense of the executive director, and then I'll actually be serious.
And that's your time. Thank you for your comments. No.
Are you termed out, or do you have to get votes again?
That's good.
I don't keep track of those, little things. I'm just going to say, because it's kind of fun to say it, is that we like the executive officers' reports at these various meetings. We have asked that he provide a version in writing prior to the start of the meeting. So I'd like to amend to the budget process such that his merit bonus is reduced by $10 each time he fails to do so. Perhaps of more interest to the rest of you is the issue of grants and where we might look for grants. And the two that I didn't see that I thought might be possibilities were the Open Space Authority's Priority Conservation Area grants for the new areas that were created last year. I know OSA worked with the agency to define the areas. I've never seen a map that overlays the reserve lands on the PCAs. But so that was one area I was hopeful of. And the other is the grant that the county just got with OSA for sustainable agricultural lands. First the framework, and then there's supposed to be grants after that. They're not mentioned as participating in the submission of the grant request, and you're not listed as one of the agencies that they might participate with, but listed under benefits is regional ecological something or other. And so to me that might overlap with your jurisdiction. So those are just two areas that I was kind of curious about because I know a little bit about them, and I thought it might be a benefit to your agency as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
No, thank you, Doug. And to answer, we have looked at the OSA grant program, and we're definitely going to try to utilize it if possible. We were looking at it for Richmond Ranch, but they may be a funding partner on that acquisition because there's a lot of recreational benefits to that property too, and there's some parcels that we're not interested in, but county parks and OSA might be interested in. The SOC program, we're lobbying the state now to earmark some of those monies to go towards NCCPs and broadening the scope of that program to cover conservation lands in general. They wrote that grant. They never approached us about it. So yeah, they might not have thought we were a good fit. I don't know. But thank you. Those were two very good suggestions.
Thanks, Edmund. Anybody else from the public wish to come forward and speak? Seeing none, commission members? No? All right, why don't we all adjourn? Got 30, 40 minutes here. Get some snacks, and we'll reconvene for the governing board meeting at 3 o'clock, I believe is what's scheduled. Thank you.
Great report. Thank you very much.
Stretch your legs.
That work.
Yeah. Do you think they in the staff area?
That's a good question.
Because I don't.
Separate full campus in Coyote Valley. And so it has been 8 years for us to get the proper critter permits. It only really started moving once the Habitat Conservation Agency came into effect. We're now 6 years and counting in San Benito County, and maybe within the next 2 months we'll get those permits. But the fact that you folks are part of a cutting edge that in order to get projects moving, you still have the same rules as the other agencies have, but the one-stop shop makes so much sense. So I do want to recognize and thank you all.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any questions. Moving on to, this is a time where the public may speak on items not on the agenda today. Do we have anybody in the public who wishes to speak? I don't see any. Joint Governing and Implementation Board Action, Item 1. Approval of the minutes of the September 17th regular joint meeting of the Governing and Implementation Board.
I actually have an update to the minutes from September 17th meeting. On page 1, under present versus absent, in Rogers, there's no D, just G. Simple change.
Thank you.
Bet you've never had that happen before.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
And
To
Matt?
abstain, I wasn't.
Anybody to abstain? I have to abstain. I wasn't here.
I abstain, was not here.
So then does it pass?
We should have Councilmember Clara on the phone now.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
How do you vote? Yes on the minutes or abstain?
Yes.
Councilmember Clara, can you approve? Do you vote
Yes.
for the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. You can vote on them though if you
If you've read them, you can vote on them.
Thank you. And through the chair, Councilmember Cala's commented it's hard for him to hear. Is this better now for you, Councilmember Cala?
It's a little bit better now. Yeah.
You'll just need to make sure you speak into the mics for him.
Thank you.
Okay.
To clarify, if I may, Constantine and Wasserman were the motion makers,
Yes.
movers and approvers, and Lazat, Little, and Varela all abstained.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2, budget review briefing. Are we having a staff report or are we just?
Yes.
Okay.
Afternoon, board members.
Excuse me, if you, through the chair, if you could speak into the microphone, please.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Jill Maras, and I'm the management analyst for the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency. Yes, I can't find the budget review.
Am I coming to number 2 presentation? Third?
I apologize. I'll be right with you.
Larry, can you give us a hand with the presentation? Thank you. There's one up here we need that isn't up here. It's O2 presentation. If there's two, I think it's because there's 2 different folders. Do you have a way to bring it up here so she can go through it?
Yeah, you can just go back to
Yeah.
the folders, please.
I think I'll start anyway. Yeah.
I was going to say, we could move on to 3 for the time being. It's an oral report. Whatever you want.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Jill, do you want to wait, or?
I can just give the presentation.
Okay.
That's fine. That's fine. This is on our fiscal year 2015-16 budget review to date. An overview. Our estimated revenue received to date is lower than was expected during the fiscal year 16 planning preparation and adopted budget, which was approved on June 18th, 2015. Per the Habitat Agency fiscal year 2015-16 budget, revenue was anticipated to exceed $15 million. Revenue to be received has now been estimated at $3,946,850. As stated during the budget workshop, as stated during the recent budget workshop presentation, the balance of this revenue committees has been anticipated to be received in fiscal year 17. And this is a detail of our revenue received to date. Meetings and discussions with co-permittees determined that $7.9 million in Habitat Plan fees anticipated for fiscal year 16 will be remitted to the Habitat Agency in fiscal year 17. And those Habitat Plan fees are as follows. The City of San Jose, we've got $6.4 million. The City of Morgan Hill, $780,000. City of Gilroy, $255,000. And Santa Clara Valley Water District, $350,000. And this is the balance of our revenue anticipated prior to the end of fiscal year 16. These are our expenses detailed. And in review, projected expenditures for fiscal year 16 will be within the parameters of the adopted budget presented at the governing board meeting on June 18th, 2015. Projected revenue is less than estimated due to Habitat Plan fee receipt moving into fiscal year 17. It is a challenging exercise for co-permittees to predict the timing of when a project will be completed and trigger plan fees being released to the Habitat Agency. For privately funded projects, this release is contingent on approvals from funding institutions or venture capital. For publicly funded projects, this is dependent on internal budgeting practices and decisions made to defer anticipated costs to the next fiscal year. For these reasons, the Habitat Agency cautiously anticipates revenue to be received going forward, and revenue to be received for fiscal year 17 has been estimated at $3,946,850.
Thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions?
I have a question. In the memo, the budget briefing memo, budget review briefing,
Yes.
in one of these attachments, there was a schedule that showed the estimates that the agencies had originally given to us for use this year, and then what the actual revenues are.
Yes.
Can you tell me what page that's on? I'm scanning through here and I can't seem to locate the page.
There's attachment 1, which is the fiscal year 2015-16 budget. And this has been revised, so that would not give you original estimates.
Do you want me to grab the revised copy?
In the,
I think I'm looking at like page 25 in the budget presentation piece. I realize it's not the same item you're on, but there's a format that says by city.
That is our, I believe, page 25, you're looking at our accounting software?
Correct.
Okay.
But there was a previous page, maybe I just found it, where we actually had a column set up. There's another one where there's a column where the projected revenue from the agencies was, then what our collections were to date by comparison, and then what year they moved them into.
oh, I see.
Do you know where that is?
The columns are anticipated and estimated are in here. I'll get you the exact page.
I was interested in how far one of them got pushed out to 17, most of them.
Yeah, the bridge.
Went out to 18.
Right.
Right.
It's on page 8 of the budget, draft operating budget. It shows that breakdown.
But not by city.
No. Jill's, do you want to go back?
That's okay. It's not
Okay.
that important.
Okay.
I have a different question. Oh, go ahead.
First and foremost, thank you very much for the presentation. I think it's very insightful with all the different information that's presented on where we're at today with collection of revenues from our different, obviously, co-permittees. I think one of the questions that I have at a basic standpoint is, are we looking at any different budgetary methods or means going forward of really thinking about how we appropriate the right anticipated revenue each year instead of looking at it from an annual standpoint? Are we looking at it from a 5-year forecast so that it gives us a little bit more flexibility in anticipation of projects or where the co-permittees anticipate projects so that we can appropriate the right dollars and cents and know where we may need to tighten our belts or where we can be a little bit more aggressive in maybe land acquisition or wetland mitigation banking because we have a better idea.
Yes, going forward, we're going to start budgeting on both a 1-year and a 5-year budget projections for expenses and revenues. Yep. After doing this twice, we have to. It's tough on you guys to try to predict when these projects are going to come in, when they're going to pull their grading permits, and it's tough on us to sort of project that too. So we're going to be a lot more conservative. We're estimating revenues to sort of flatten out. So we have those big projects in San Jose. There's about, I think, 4 of them total. But once those get through the system, we see revenues being in the $3 to $4 million range. Yeah. But we're going to start trying to analyze our budget that way and work with you that way going forward.
Any other questions? So my question is, I reviewed this and I might have missed, is there a reporting of anyone that is still owing you funds?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, that's been worked out. Everyone understands that. We also have, as part of the financial policies we adopted for fee remittance, we clearly state that fees need to be remitted to the agency within 3 weeks of the close of quarter, 15 days, and business days. And if they're not, then we'll start charging interest.
Okay, good.
I don't know how we'll collect it, but at least it's written in there.
Go ahead.
I hate to keep adding work to Ed's already busy docket as it is, but have you also thought about looking at mid-year budget adjustments or working with the corporate mid-tees to kind of get midway through the fiscal year, getting an update on where they actually think about the remittance of their fee, and if things start to shift to where the co-permittee may have been aggressive with what they had thought from a development schedule, but obviously as market dictates, things can slow very quickly. That obviously impacts how we have to operate. Do we have anywhere within our policies or procedures to be able to come back and make certain adjustments and see how that affects us?
Yes, and we would have done it this January, but we didn't have a quorum for the governing board. But yeah, we talked to you and Monoxy with the city. We talked to Steve and Jim with the city of Morgan Hill, and so yeah, so our mid-year budget in January review would have reflected sort of the same analysis based on what your folks and others were telling us.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's it because we're just reviewing the report. Did that cover 2 and 3? Just 2? Okay, on to item 3.
And Madam Chair, if I may, just for the record, we had a workshop prior to this meeting, and there were people from the public here, and the presentation that was given by our executive director was excellent, and we went into great detail. And I assume, if I may, through the chair to our executive director, the presentation that you gave or a form thereof is on our website?
Yes.
Okay, and so for anyone that was not able to be here for the workshop, there's great detail going into especially the concern that we had about the projected revenue versus the actual, the great disparity, and they went into detail on those projects and the dollars expected in this next fiscal year coming.
Okay. So was that the oral report for item 3? No.
Yeah, we've had that oral report. Yes.
Oh, this is the annual report. Oral
okay,
report.
go ahead.
Yes,
Yeah,
we've had
yeah.
yes the annual report.
So I'd like to introduce both boards to Tara Donovan, our latest and greatest addition to the Habitat Agency, and now she's going to come up and give you a presentation on the annual report, which is a requirement of the plan that we do an annual report, which is submitted to the wildlife agencies and see how we're doing. Tara comes to us from ICF International. We're lucky to have her working for us. Previously, she worked she was a Peace Corps volunteer, and she went to Northwestern for her undergrad and Duke for her master's. And I still haven't forgiven Duke for beating the University of Wisconsin in the Final Four last year.
Can I ask Larry to come out here so I can see my notes on the PowerPoint presentation? I didn't work with him ahead of time to set this up.
If you press escape.
Technical difficulty.
Okay. Last time, from my computer, I can just do it from the presentation mode down here. I know you've set this up for me before. Okay. That's just to draw on stuff. So here. yeah, that's what I want, thanks. That's all right, I'll figure it out. I can remember most of it. All right, so this is the first annual report, and it covers the fiscal year 13-14 and then fiscal year 14-15. So the first partial year of habitat plan implementation and the first full fiscal year. So this is all you need to get out of the presentation, the annual report top 10. So we have 54 covered projects, 1,800 acres of land acquired, 2 restoration projects planned, 1 plant population that we're creating, 1 change circumstance, over 700 acres of burrowing owl breeding habitat under management agreement, 5 funded research projects, nearly $18 million in revenue over the first 2 years, 3 awards, and 1 programmatic RGP permit application. Okay, covered projects. So covered projects are the projects that both the private and both private applicants and public entities move through the habitat plan to get their Endangered Species Act coverage. So we've had 54 projects to date, over half of which have been private projects, a third have been public projects, and then just about 10% have been participating special entity projects through the Habitat Agency. As far as impacts, there was a little bit over 500 acres of permanent impacts, and I can't remember the temporary impacts because it was in my notes. But most of the permanent impacts have occurred to develop land cover types, such as urban, suburban, and reservoirs. And then over half have happened, so about a quarter have happened to develop land cover types. Over half have happened to agricultural lands, mostly row crops. And then just a quarter of the impacts occurred on natural lands. So grasslands, aquatic features, things like that. So where are these projects happening? Well, there's 7 projects that have happened in the city of San Jose, 10 in Morgan Hill, 6 in Gilroy, and 6 in the greater county of Santa Clara. For public projects, county parks did 6 projects, county roads 1, BPA 1 project, the water district 8 projects, but in several locations because most of theirs were operations, and then 8 Habitat Agency permitted projects, and these are the participating special entities. So, other than impacts, we have our great land acquisition of UTC Coyote Ridge. Coyote Ridge is located is in the center of our county in the Diablo Range. It protects over 18,000 acres of habitat, the majority of which is serpentine grasslands. This acquisition fulfills a third of our requirements for bay checker spot butterfly. It happened within 2 high priority conservation analysis zones, Coyote 4 and Coyote 5. It provides habitat for 14 of the 18 covered species. In addition, it is home to a herd of over 40 elk and provides habitats for other locally important species. In addition, it preserves contiguous rangeland in the county, and grazing will be a main management tool on the property. So for restoration, there are 2 sites that are planned for restoration within Calero County Park, in the new portion of it in the Rancho San Vicente. Both are under design currently and are due for construction later this year. These sites were selected through the Restoration Resource Group process. This was a group of both technical experts and permitters that reviewed 11 sites throughout the county, and these were the 2 preferred sites. One of our endemic species to the county, so Coyote ceanothus, is found only here in Santa Clara County. There's only 3 known locations. Most of them are, all of which are around Morgan Hill. This photo is taken next to Anderson Reservoir. So as part of our permit, we need to either create or acquire a new occurrence of, we need to create a new occurrence of Coyote ceanothus. And since 2009, the Santa Clara Valley Water District has been taking steps to both research how to propagate this plant and have since installed new, a new site for the plant, for planting the plant.
Common name for that plant?
That's what it's called.
Really?
It has a different scientific name.
Yes, that's not the scientific name.
I mean, can't you say Coyote ceanothus? Some may just call it a bush with showy flowers, as you see here. So, I mean, there's better names of things. I mean, the most beautiful jewel flower, much easier. But the Coyote ceanothus, we did one, the pilot site actually failed due to an outbreak of Phytophthora. So Phytophthora is, now that's a good name for you too, Phytophthora. And if you can spell it without looking at the slide, you get bonus points. So Phytophthora is a waterborne mold. It attacks many different plants, and it's most commonly seen in the form of sudden oak death. But it also attacks other plants. And the nursery stock was contaminated with this mold, and the entire site that they planted was wiped out. So, let's try it again. Another site was selected on Coyote Ridge. And the site, prior to planting, the site was solarized, so the soil was heat treated, and then the nursery, instead of using nursery stock, the plants were directly planted into the soil. So this one has, I don't want to spoil the annual report for next year, but so far so good. So our cutest species is the western burrowing owl. So, bring that back. So at the Don Edwards National Wildlife Refuge, the Habitat Agency is improving management on over 700 acres. We're working with the San Francisco Bird Bay Observatory to do grazing, mowing, weeding, and also surveys for the species. This past year, there were 3 breeding pairs and 13 young that came from the site. So for me, one of the most exciting things about the Habitat Plan is the research that can be funded through the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Local Assistant Grant Program. This money goes specifically towards NCCP's, Natural Community Conservation Plans, to fund research in a permit area. So during the first 2 years, we funded 5 different projects. When I say we, I mean the state funded 5 different projects, and we also have received 3 additional grants. So I'm just going to go through the research quickly. So the first project is the UC Santa Cruz Puma project, which is looking at how pumas move through Coyote Valley and where they're moving. Also looking at the county and movement of species is this project called Habitat Corridors through Coyote Valley and Santa Cruz Mountains in the Diablo Range. This is led by OSA, and looking at how different sizes of animals use Coyote Valley for movement. For burrowing owl, we have lots of owls that like to winter here. It's like the Florida of the Midwest for owls. So they come here in the winter, but we don't know where they go in the summer. So we have a banding project that looks at the owls and bands all the overwintering owls to see if they're staying here or if they're going to other places. So a big cost to our plan is monitoring, and one of our management tools is grazing. And so instead of going out every time someone is grazing a land to monitor how the grass is doing, we're looking at alternative methods for monitoring the grazing. And so this is a remote tool that was developed by the Nature Conservancy and UC Berkeley, and we're doing a test to see how it actually measures up compared to in-field data gathered. The Sycamore Alluvial Woodland is a very rare natural community inside the Habitat Plan study area, and this study is looking at the factors that influence stand regeneration and will inform management of this community in the permit area and beyond. Okay, let's talk about money. Since I don't have my notes, I'm not going to be able to give you all the numbers, but here we go. Half our money came from fees, and half from non-fee funding. So that's exciting. The Habitat Plan does assume that 55% of the funding will come from fees and 45% will come from non-fee funding. And looking at how we implemented the Habitat Plan during the first 2 years, this actually worked out quite well. So fee funding was $8.8 million, and this mostly came from land cover fees, followed by our specialty fees for serpentine and nitrogen deposition, burrowing owl fees, and wetlands. A small amount of money came from PSC charges, which is mostly cost recovery plus an additional charge for using the Habitat Plan. So grants made up the other half of our funding, this $8.9 million. Fortunately, we have OSA in our backyard, and they're very good at getting grants. So over half of our revenue is due to the acquisition of UTC that's owned by the OSA, but the Habitat Agency has a conservation easement over it. And this $8.9 million is all of this, about 8.8 was for the land acquisition, all of which was funded by grants. And then we have a small amount of grants that we've gotten for research that I just went over. So I bet you didn't know that we've actually received 3 awards, which is exciting. So we've received the Association of Bay Area Governments Growing Smarter Together Award, Preserving and Protecting the Environment, the American Planning Association California Chapter Northern Section Innovations in Green Community Planning Award, and then the Association of Environmental Professionals Outstanding Award for Environmental Resource Document. So 3 awards. Gilroy, we have your award in our office if you want to come pick it up. Otherwise, I can drop it off eventually. All right, and Ed went over this earlier, but also very exciting. During the reporting period, we submitted our permit for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And one of our goals is not just having ESA streamlining, but also water's permitting streamlining. And of January of this year, we received that regional general permit. We're going to be rolling it out in the next few months for use, and we're having a training in early April for all the co-permittees to tell them about this new permitting program. All right, thank you. I'm done. So I do want to thank all the co-permittees and the staff that continue to be dedicated to Habitat Plan implementation, all the volunteers that participate on the PAC and our various resource groups, so all the burrowing owl monitoring we do, and then our restoration resources group is volunteer-based, and then also to our consultants, ICF and DUDEC, that without their support, we wouldn't have been able to accomplish all of this in our first 2 years. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, excellent report. Okay, then I guess moving on to, where am I at? Item 4, governing board action is the consent calendar.
Second.
We do have a speaker card for item number 4.
Okay.
And, yeah, 4 on that one.
Call them up? Yes. I don't have it.
Want to make a motion to approve the other ones?
It wasn't in a, it just says accept the report. Do we need a motion on the previous item?
No, not the previous item, but motion to approve the other consent items other than 4.
Sure, motion to approve items 5 through 10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Okay.
I apologize, who was the first and second?
I was the second.
Wasserman, Constant.
Same two.
Yeah,
Go right
Valentine.
ahead.
Here for the record, Doug Muirhead, Morgan Hill. This meeting and its materials are covered by the Brown Act, so it's very confusing to read the cover letter from the auditors, the last paragraph that says restricted use, only you and the agency management can use the materials. Now, I raised this issue with the library JPA last year, and County Council assured me that the Brown Act overrode the auditor's restricted use statement. But it would be a lot simpler if you would instruct your auditors to either remove that when presenting reports to agencies that are covered by the Brown Act, or at least have them note that there is an overriding consideration for agencies such as this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we can do that, Doug. It's not a problem. Yep.
But we can't guarantee that they'll remove it.
We can try. Move to approve item 4.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. I don't know, we're on the governing board, right? Yeah, I look at you, and I'm saying, and I have to remember your implementation. Okay. And Ash, did he vote?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Where are we on the agenda? Item 11 is what I'm seeing, is that correct?
Yes.
Selection of 2016 Governing Board Chair and Vice Chair. Nominations. What the heck?
Who's the current chair and vice chair?
Well,
You're chair.
I'm the
I
chair.
don't know who's vice chair.
Who's the vice chair? Oh, of course.
There you go.
So I nominate Mike Wasserman to be chair.
I figured.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey.
Now we need a vice chair.
Who else is on the governing board?
Daniel Harney, Pat Tucker, Rich Constantine, Steve Tate, Rose
Rich.
Herrera, Ash Clara, Mike Wasserman, Joe Smidian.
I nominate Rich Constantine.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I want to see that reflected in the minutes.
Michelle's good.
So then do you take over then? How are we doing this?
Motion for Chair Tucker to continue the governing board meeting.
This is your last meeting.
Yeah, 2 items.
Okay, item to item 12. Approval of financial policies.
Yes, so the action is to adopt resolution approving Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency policies, an investment policy, a fraud policy, and a donations, contributions, and scholarship policy.
We do have a speaker card for this item as well.
Okay, can you please call the name up?
Mr. Muirhead, Doug Muirhead?
Thank you again, Doug Muirhead, Morgan Hill. I think there's a typo in 6B. It starts out the city. I suspect it's not the city. My comment has to do with Section 3 procedures, Part B. You specifically address donations exceeding $100,000, where you will get a staff report, and therefore the public will have some understanding of what was happening. However, there's no indication that there's any reporting intended for all the other donations. And so what I would like you to do is have a yearly report where you identify donors' amounts and the intended use by the agency. And to make Supervisor Wasserman happy, he won't have to make a motion each year. It's okay if it's on consent. Thank you.
He knows you.
Doug and I, we're on the road together. Four or five committees, Doug.
He usually beats you though, no.
Okay, will that be a problem?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
So do we have a motion to adopt the resolution approving Santa Clara Valley Agency financial policies?
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Constantine and Commissioner Herrera. Hi. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Item 13, delegation of authority to implement board and executive officer to act on certain acceptances and approvals.
And the purpose of this resolution envisions delegating responsibility to the implementation board and the executive officer for certain dollar amounts to streamline and make us more nimble in land acquisition and donation acceptance and land in lieu acceptance process, mainly because the governing board only meets 4 times a year. So that's sort of the thinking behind it. I can go over the dollar amounts if you would like. So the grant approval for public or private land in lieu transactions valued at $1 million or less, acceptance of easements of the same amount, accept fee title acquisitions of $1 million or less, accept donations of money, goods, or services valued at $500,000 or less, and we would do the report as suggested. Accept grants of land valued at $1 million or less, and for the implementation board, it'd be from $1 million to $5 million on all those same categories.
Does anyone have any questions? I actually have a question because I remember discussing this, but I honestly can't remember. Maybe Valerie, you do. What was the reason why this wasn't granted in the beginning from the beginning of the whole plan? Do you remember? Do you have any knowledge on that? And was it an oversight or was there a specific reason? I guess that's my question.
I have no idea.
I'm guessing an oversight. You know, there was so much you guys and Ken were dealing with at that time. This, I just think, fell through the cracks.
But I'm thinking too.
I think it was oversight.
Okay, I'm fine with it too.
Motion to approve?
Okay, have a motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So,
Moving. Oh.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I think that's the.
Now's the time we thank the Chair Tucker for her
Yes, thank you, Chair
chairpersonship.
Tucker.
Thank
What a
you
fine job you did.
Yes,
for the first 2 years.
thank you.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. Yay.
Wonderful. We now move on to the implementation board action. Ash, are you on both boards?
I think I'm only on,
Governing.
yes.
All right. Thank you for tuning in.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye. We have the consent items now 14 through 17. I received word already that we want to pull 17 off that for a comment to be made. And do we have any speaker cards? Perhaps Mr. Muirhead wishes to speak?
One for item 15.
Wonderful.
Do you need a motion for the balance?
I'll take a motion for 14 and 16.
Motion to approve for the balance, 14 and 16.
Thank you.
Second.
And second by Commissioner Lozat. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. 14 and 16 are approved. We'll hear from Mr. Muirhead on 15.
Thank you. Again, Doug Muirhead, Morgan Hill. This will be my final comment on transparency for the day. There is a section in this contract and several others dealing with termination where either party is allowed without cause to terminate the agreement. I personally want to see a reason. I would like to have us know that we are getting lessons learned when avoidable mistakes are made so that we don't make them again. And so this idea that you can simply terminate a contract saying we changed our mind or oops or whatever it is, you know, doesn't help us improve. This process does get used. I've seen my city use it multiple times. You know, we're told to contractor's great, and then a year later, oops. So I think we can do better. I'd like you to do better. I'm sure the answer is going to be all contracts are written this way these days, and my response to that is I don't care. Let's do better. Thank you.
So if I may comment.
Please, Valerie.
There are actually two manners in which the contract can be terminated. It can be terminated for cause. If there's actually a problem, the contractor isn't performing well, there are other issues, what have you. So that's a for-cause termination. But you also want to reserve the right to terminate without cause, because cause is used in a very specific sense, and without cause allows us to terminate, for example, if we decide, like the planting, it's not working and we just really simply want to stop it. Or we have a funding problem and we simply don't want to proceed going forward. So being able to terminate a contract is sometimes necessary on the part of the agency, not meaning that there's been any problem or there's anything wrong with what the contractor is doing. Conversely, a contractor may wind up in a situation where they need to terminate a contract. Somebody could be a small operation, they could have a health problem, they could have other things happen, and they need to be able to terminate that contract without all sorts of adverse consequences. So for cause typically means that there's a reason, as he indicated, he wants to know, and you would know it. But the ability to terminate without cause is a necessary out for both parties in some instances.
Thank you for that explanation. And if there is a cause and it's not confidential, we can disclose that cause.
That is correct, and you often see that, and you read about that in the newspapers where, a contractor was terminated because they had so many problems and so forth and so on.
Thank you. With that, I'll look for a motion to approve 15.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
None. Passes unanimously. Commissioner Little, you pulled 17.
I did, thank you. This item was of interest to me because, and I've already sent some comments over to Edmund. This is a reappointment of folks to the advisory committee that is just a automatic reappointment. And I just wanted to have a conversation about the fact that I hope that this is not kind of a standard practice. I realize that these were initially 2-year terms when the other terms were 4, and this is part of our staggering process. But I would hate to see this board, as a matter of practice, just automatically renew without giving an opportunity to broadcast both the work of this agency and try to solicit other people's involvement in the work of the agency. That was what I wanted to say.
No, those are good points, Leslie. And I would say that going forward, when the 4-year terms expire, we will heed your advice and do a more of a broad outreach to try to diversify the board and bring in some new ideas. Yeah.
It's a great time and expose people to what the work of the agency is.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. And oftentimes it gets people more engaged, and the more they see it, the more familiar they become with the opportunity, and good thing.
Yeah. So before the 4-year terms expire, which should be next year, I think, we'll do we can ask people, they can reapply, of course, but we'll try to solicit other people too.
And Chair Emeritus Tucker?
I wanted to ask you if you had received any inquiry at all.
No.
I mean, this was on the agenda, but I don't know if it was noticed anywhere else.
No, we have a current vacancy with the business position, and we need to do a better job soliciting it. But we're going to, after this meeting, I've talked to Jill about reaching out to the Chambers of Commerce and trying to get somebody appointed. But we did it just through word of mouth and through our webpage, and we had nobody apply. So.
And the second question is, yes, the people that are asking to be reappointed, is this a 4-year term or a 2-year term?
It's a 4. They were appointed to 2 originally for staggering purposes, from what I understand. for you would never have all board members, all PAC members being up for reappointment or finding new PAC members all at once.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lazat.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Leslie, and I was glad to see the sentence after their names that say that they faithfully fulfilled their duties and should be reappointed. When I have the opportunity, as I'm sure the supervisors and the council members have opportunities to appoint citizens to committees, the first question I ask is, have they been coming to the meetings? Because I'm not going to reappoint somebody just to have them not show. So I think that this kind of a sentence would be very beneficial for when people are up for reappointment, that we somehow know that they've attended a certain number of meetings. In fact, is there anything in their appointment or in their, I don't know whether there's a manual about the committee they're on, is there anything in there that says that they if they have more than 2 unexcused absences or something, that they have to?
Yes, I don't recall the exact language, but there is a attendance requirement.
Good.
Yeah, do you remember the exact language?
That's fine, as long as there's something in there. Yeah, as long as there's something in there.
This board actually adopted
I thought
policies for the PAC.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, and so I just wanted to say I agree with Leslie on that, and that the next time that we have a broader outreach after 6 years, I think some may want to go off, some may want some new blood.
Yeah, the policy was very specific that there would be these short initial terms just to provide for staggering, and that PAC members would be eligible. Normally, a PAC term would be 4 years, and PAC members would be eligible to serve 2 4-year terms.
Okay.
I just wanted to, thank you, add one thing, and that is that I think participating entities who sit on this board can, if they don't have policies that restrict it, help you broadcast through their own Facebook, their email. We do blasts to the community, so we'd be happy also to take and assist in making it visible.
So work through maybe Angie and Michelle to make that happen. Oh, thank you.
You're talking about when terms come up and we're advertising?
Well, he's got a business candidate, for example, a vacancy, right?
Correct.
Okay. And I think I'll just add on to that, and then Member Herrera, I'll recognize you. I think each of us have different Facebooks, newsletters, things like that, and happy to put that out there, that there's openings and where to submit.
Excellent.
And what
Thank
to
you.
do. Thank you.
Well, okay.
Yeah, is there an application process? So when
Yes.
this comes up, there's like an application and the whole business, okay?
Yeah.
But, so I find it helpful, I know, on our city council when we are appointing people to commissions, to kind of be able to look at the candidates and some of the questions they ask, what have you learned on the commission, some of your accomplishments, and if there's time they come and, we interview them, they come before the council. And it's really good to kind of get a sense of how they feel that board is functioning, that advisory board. So, I don't know that that's contemplated in this group, but I always find it helpful because you get a real sense of whether you've got the right folks on there, what they're doing, what they feel their challenges are. It's kind of helpful.
If the board wishes, we could do that. Absolutely.
A nod of heads, is that their consensus to doing that?
But I also strongly agree with what Leslie was saying about it's a chance to broadcast what that group is doing and the good work and all of that too.
Member Herrera, do you want to restate what it is you're asking for the commission's approval on?
Oh, I was just saying, I was describing how, City of San Jose, when we're looking at commission appointments, we have them come before us, and even if they're being reappointed, they come and we see their application, we see their resume, and they are able to say what they've, like about being on the commission, why they want to continue, that sort of thing, or if you have new members and you are able to interview them. I don't know that that's what we want to do here. It's been helpful. I think as a council member, it's been helpful because we get a better sense of the work of the commission, and otherwise you kind of get to meet these people. So yeah, it's been helpful.
So perhaps 3 years from now, you can put on the agenda, that we have these expiring positions and how do we want to address filling them, and we do that.
Yes.
Don't laugh, you'll still be here. All right, and with that, do I have a motion to approve 17 with those suggestions?
Second.
Motion and a second. Comments, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, none. Passed unanimously. Move on to number 18, selection of the 2016 Implementation Board Chair and Vice Chair. Open to nominations.
Who's the vice chair now?
It's member Linda Lazat. I'll nominate member Lazat as chair.
Second.
Second.
Oops, she's taken it under advisement. What did you say?
I will accept.
You will accept.
Second, yeah.
Wonderful. Any other nominations? Seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Congratulations. If I get to still continue, I'm going to look for a vice chair. I'll make a motion looking for a vice chair. Who would like to be vice chair?
I'll nominate Rob. Courtney.
Rob, you accept?
All right.
He said the same thing.
And a second from member Tucker. So you have a motion and a second. You're welcome. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Wonderful. Thank you all. And I'll turn things over to member Lazat.
Thank you very much. Item 9. First, I have to get the mic down. Item 19, approval of agreement with ICF International for implementation support services. Recommended action, authorize executive officer to execute a 33-month, $951,110 professional services agreement through 2018 with ICF Jones and Stokes to assist with Santa Clara Valley Habitat Plan implementation. Is there a staff report?
Yes,
Okay.
there is.
Let
So, Jason.
Mr. Sullivan.
No, you okay? Okay. So as noted, it's a 33-month contract, up to but not to exceed that amount. So it could be less than that. And the previous ICF contract in 2015 was a 12-month contract, not to exceed $925,770. So this contract represents a scaling back of ICF's involvement with the plan. If we add a staff person, this dollar amount will shrink some more. And they will be doing land management preparation, plan preparation. They'll be helping out with the regional general permit application process, and at least initially supporting me with the RGP sort of submittal application process to the Corps. And they will be helping out with compliance tracking and a lot of implementation stuff.
I like that. That's a good legal word. Is that it, Edmund?
Yes.
Do we have a motion? Questions?
Motion and a question.
Question?
Question.
Okay.
So there were other, there were other firms that also submitted bids?
Yes.
Bids. And so what were their how do they come in relative to cost?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, one firm only bid on all the stuff we'd say conservation strategy implementation, what we call Cost Center 3. That was Nomad. And they were interviewed by a panel of co-permittees that determined that they were not the preferred choice. Dudek was the other firm that bid.
So the one you just mentioned, they couldn't meet the requirements. So.
No. They only bid on one of the three areas of need, and that was what we refer to as Cost Center 3. And the second firm was Dudek, and they did secure one contract that is before the implementation board today, which is helping out with the 401 water permitting integration, and they will write an aquatic resource plan for us, where we'll be able to integrate the 401 process into the 404 process and the ESA permitting. They will also secure a contract that has not yet come before the board to set up the species monitoring and land management database. So that will be coming to the board probably in May, June, sometime. So DUDEC did get some of the work that would have gone to ICF if they hadn't bid on it. We're also going to do a small contract with DUDEC to provide some sort of land management advice to me, sort of, because I've worked with some of the DUDEC people who are once used to be part of the company called Restoration Resources, a firm I worked a lot with in Placer. DUDEC bought them. These are experts in mitigation banking, creation, and restoration management and land management. So we're going to do a small contract with them to kind of provide technical advice and guidance to me. And
yeah, I just wanted to know why they didn't receive this contract. I'm just looking at this contract and awarding this contract. So DUDEC wasn't.
Oh, no.
They didn't get this particular contract.
Right, they didn't get this particular, but there's tasks that.
Get it? I'm just trying to,
Oh.
So the first one didn't meet the requirements. DUDEC didn't get it because.
Yeah, DUDEC is getting part of what we did in the RFP. So the RFP had several tasks that we were requesting bids on. And DUDEC is getting some of the work as a result of this RFP. Some of the other work they didn't get because ICF had, to be blunt, they've been doing this since 2007. They have familiarity with the agency. They have the expertise. I've been very pleased.
I understand why we picked them to do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rogers and then Supervisor Wasserman.
So I think it's a great thing that we're having the continued institutional knowledge that ICF, for another 33 months. The one thing I would caution is that obviously ICF has a very broad reach as it relates to environmental stewardship that relates everything from what's identified in the contract, but also they also do provide certain level of private development consultation on projects, and there will be wanting to make sure that there's a conflict of interest doctrine, or there's that firewall where they're helping to represent not only the Habitat Agency, but they may come across themselves at the same table for projects that we comment on. So wanting to make sure that we don't run afoul or have individuals who are helping to proactively present our case or our concerns on a project.
So actually, one of the first things I worked on when I became agency counsel was a conflict of interest policy involving them.
Point.
Thank you.
Supervisor Wasserman.
Thank you, Chair Lazat. 3 things on this. One, thank you for the clarification that it's up to 951. It's all, it's not guaranteed. It's all based on the amount of work that we need. That's number 1. Number 2, thank you also for the trend. The previous contract was, you said 12 months. It was 12 to 15.
Yeah, we did a time extension. Yeah.
So it was about 12 to 15 months,
yeah.
920,000. Now we're going to almost 3 times that, 33 months for 950,000. So I like that trend, absolutely. And number 3, I think this ties in well to your request for the new staffer, which I'm in favor of doing, which will further reduce our consulting costs. So thank you. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to authorize. Approve.
Motion by Board Member Wasserman, seconded by Board Member Herrera. Are there no comments?
No comments.
No comments. I think Mr. Moorhead's comment about termination probably stands for this contract as well. So with that, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Next item, 20, approval of agreement with DUDEC for programmatic permitting assistance. Recommended action, authorize executive officer to execute a 3-year, up to $380,500 professional services agreement with DUDEC to assist with the Clean Water Act Section 401 and 404 permit integration. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is.
Go right ahead.
Yes. So again, it's a up to but not exceed amount. And for my days in Placer, I should have known to include that. So this is the next phase of the water permitting. So you win the Super Bowl, but now you got to defend the title. That's kind of where we're at.
The Warriors.
Yes, exactly, the Warriors. So you win 72 games, 73 games, but you still, it means nothing if you don't win the championship. So this is
True.
this
True.
this is
true.
this is a taking us to the next level. So as I mentioned in the budget workshop, the next step is we have to go to the interagency review team process. It's a U.S. Army Corps-led process that when you want to set up a mitigation bank or you want to set up an in-lieu fee program, which is what we want to do, is set up an in-lieu fee program, and the Habitat Agency fees would be the fees that would be the in-lieu fee program, that the Corps would recognize these fees as adequate for 404 mitigation, and therefore applicants wouldn't have to double mitigate. So we have an interim regional general permit mitigation strategy. It's a little clunky. It's not fully integrated with our ESA permits that were granted a couple years ago. So we want to go to this IRT, have our in lieu fee program instrument approved as appropriate mitigation, and that our plan is appropriate mitigation for 404 impacts. And that'll take a couple years to go through that process. So that's what this contract represents, is helping us go through that contract, as well as the real prize is getting the 401 regional board certification of our 404 RGP. So without 401 integration, we're going to encounter the same problems that are currently encountered by applicants when they're trying to seek 401 coverage. The regional board, both the San Francisco and the Central Coast boards, will not recognize the habitat plan as mitigation for 401 impacts. They will require additional mitigation for projects. They don't call it that, but that's what we all call it in this room, is additional mitigation. And it'll mean a streamlining of the 401 process too. So DUDEC has experience doing this with the South Sacramento County HCP, NCCP, and they have done an excellent job creating an aquatic resource plan for them that the state board likes. The Central Valley Regional Board has deferred approval of this to the state board. We're currently in negotiations with the regional boards to try to get this 401 cert. These regional boards are tough organizations. They have high expectations, and they would call themselves good stewards of the resources. Applicants would say something different. So what we need is to get them to buy into our regional general permit. If we can't get them to buy into this, we will go to the state board and seek approval through the state board. Since we're in the jurisdiction of 2 regional boards, we can go to the state board and have them issue a 401 certification. The state board likes permit integration. The state board likes this idea that HCP, NCCPs are implementing water permitting requirements and doing more landscape watershed level conservation. So that's what this contract is about, taking it to the next level. And in that RFP process that board member Herrera was referring to, is we flushed this out and decided to go with them instead of ICF on this.
Okay. Are there any questions? Have any board members? Any questions from the community? None? Seeing none, do I have a motion to?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Board Member Herrera, seconded by Mr. Rogers. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. Item 21, presentation, Executive Officer Report. Mr. Sullivan.
Yes. Oh, we have one more item yet.
21.
Review and approve.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I saw the item 20 supplement. I thought that's what it was. Item 21, review and approval of Santa Clara Valley Habitat Plan FY 13-14 and FY 14-15 annual report. Recommended action, approve the annual report and authorize submittal of the habitat report to the wildlife agencies. Is there a staff report?
There is. And Tara's presentation will replace, unless you want me to get into specific things, Tara's presentation mirrors the staff report, but I can.
The presentation she gave for the
Yes.
governing board.
Correct.
Okay. Are there any further questions?
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Little, seconded by Board Member Herrera. Board Member Herrera has a question.
I wasn't here earlier, and apologize for being late, but I just wanted to congratulate tremendous work, and especially the Army Corps of Engineers moving forward with that. So it's really exciting. So
Yes,
I'm sure it's already been commented on, but
Yeah.
Thank you.
I wanted to add that too. Thank you.
I know when you were talking about your troubles with the Army Corps of Engineer, I suggested you contact the Water District because we were dealing with them regularly. Now I think I'm going to have them contact you.
Okay.
Because you got the permit.
Sounds
good. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you. Now, Executive Officer report.
Yeah, it's going to be really brief. This has been a long meeting for all of you and us too. And we still have closed session. But basically, I was just going to give a little update on the RGP, where we're at. So the first project that's going to go through here, and especially with board members Rogers and Herrera here, it's important to hear this, that the first project that's going to go through the RGP will be the City of San Jose outfall structures. There's 8 of them that, simple outfall structure replacements that are having trouble going through the permit process. So they are going to use the RGP, and fortunately for the city, they had done a very large restoration project on the Guadalupe River, a portion of which was banked as credit for future projects, 1.2 acres. So that 1.2 acres will be used as pre-mitigation for both the 404 and 401 process. So because we now have the RGP, these projects will be able to move forward rather quickly. So that's good news. And we're working on applications and coming up with some fees. The fees associated with this will be associated with application fees and maybe some additional monitoring requirements that the Corps may have. So that's it.
Thank you. Any questions of our Executive Director?
I have a question, Ed.
Okay.
Yes.
So you got the credit, they have a credit, and that is applicable to both the Corps permit and the water board permit?
We're hoping.
Oh,
Yes.
we're hoping.
Oh, it's definitely going to be water board. There's no doubt about it. But they haven't. So they built it's on the Guadalupe River. I think it's almost 11 acres, like 10.8, 10.9 acres of restoration. They used all but 1.2 acres of it for previous projects. So John Hessler found this memo. And they did 10 years of mitigation monitoring out there, and Brian Wines is I think going to agree that this can be used as mitigation for those projects, and we will submit it to the Corps as pre-mitigation via the RGP.
So is this in the urban area?
Yes.
But have they paid fees to the Habitat Conservation?
Yeah, they'll pay fees to us. Yeah.
So
yeah.
is this double mitigating?
Technically, no, because it's, yeah. Yeah, technically not, no. Yeah, because it's a project that was already built. So, and these 1.2 acres will be set aside as mitigation for city projects, and we will enroll. Our goal is to enroll that in the reserve system. This riparian corridor we're going to enroll it in the
Urban area.
Yeah, it's the only way we're going to get a 401. Yeah.
For me, that's great.
Yeah.
To be able to do that.
Yeah, because there's no way. I was hammered by the regional board in a conference call about how we ignore whole stretches of these watersheds, and if we want 401 certification, we're going to have to do restoration to some degree in the urban areas, Morgan Hill, Gilroy, City of San Jose. Yeah, and you know this stuff as well as I do.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, then. Any other comments, questions? All right, so now we're going to move to closed session. Do we stay here? We actually have a room? Okay. So we will go adjourn to closed session.
I also would like to say thank you very much to Mike Wasserman for chairing the implementation board for 2 years.
And we're adjourning to closed session for conference with our real estate negotiator on 4 items. We will then reconvene back here to report out, if necessary, on any actions taken by the board.